They didn't curse your name. They cursed your mission. Let me ask you something that's been burning in your chest for years. Have you ever been betrayed by the very people you protected? Have you been gaslighted, discarded, emotionally manipulated, and still chosen to love? And now you wonder, did God even see any of it? You ever wonder why your blessings come with betrayal? Why every open door echoes with footsteps walking out behind you? Why the people who should have held you up were the first ones to watch you fall? Here's what they never told you. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned. That spiritual isolation you've carried like a weight, that wasn't abandonment. That was divine protection. Those family members who betrayed you while wearing masks of loyalty, they weren't your people. They were your test. That emotional gaslighting disguised as love, those voices that made you question your own reality, they weren't breaking you down. They were revealing who they really were. You've been walking around thinking something's wrong with you because you're too strong to be helped, too deep to be understood, too real for their comfort zones. But here's the shocking truth that's about to shatter everything you believed about your pain. You weren't the target. You were the test, and they failed. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was divine restraint. Your tears weren't just grief, they were sacred data, recorded in heaven's courtroom. Every night you cried alone, every betrayal that cut deeper than the last, every moment you chose forgiveness over revenge, that wasn't you being naive, that was you being chosen. They sent curses to break you, but here's what they didn't calculate. What they built to break you is now the ruin they're trapped inside. You didn't survive that storm for nothing. You survived because heaven still needs your light. And if you're watching this now, it's not by chance, it's by divine appointment. Thank you to every one of you who supports this message through your presence, your super thanks, your donations. Your generosity isn't just seen, it's spiritual. You're not just giving, you're sowing light into a message that's reaching souls who thought they were forgotten. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful you're here. Your time, your attention, your wounded but unbroken faith, it all matters. If you feel like that curse should have killed you but you're still standing, this message is yours. Say it out loud. It missed. I'm still here. Because what comes next will shift everything you thought you knew about why you were attacked. And now, let's go deeper. You know what they did, don't you? When they whispered your name in dark rooms, when they twisted your truth into their lie, when they gathered like vultures over what they thought was your carcass, they weren't just attacking a person. They defiled sacred ground. You're not just a name in their mouth. You're a divine frequency, and they tampered with something holy. See, they looked at you and saw flesh. God looked at you and saw purpose. They saw someone to use, abuse, confuse. Heaven saw someone to choose, to infuse with power they'd never understand. While they were casting spells with their gossip, lighting candles with their envy, the Most High had his eyes on it all. Every word they spoke against you, recorded. Every scheme they hatched in secret, witnessed. Every tear they caused to fall from your eyes, collected like evidence in jars they'll never see coming. They cursed you like you were common, not knowing God had placed his name on your back like a seal. You felt it, didn't you? That moment when their poison hit your spirit and something shifted, like watching a bullet ricochet off bulletproof glass, like seeing lightning strike a rod and redirect into the ground. That wasn't luck, beloved. That wasn't coincidence. That was consecration. You see, they thought they were aiming at a target, but you were an altar. And when you throw fire at an altar, it doesn't burn down, it burns up. It carries the flame straight to heaven's throne room where justice sits patient, but never sleeping. Remember Joseph? His brothers threw him in a pit, sold him like property, told their father he was dead, but every betrayal was just positioning him for a palace they'd never qualify to enter. That pit wasn't his grave, it was his launching pad. Zama energy, different century, same God. They don't understand what they've awakened. When you touch what heaven has anointed, when you mock what the Most High has marked, when you curse what God has called you, don't just make an enemy. You activate a system. And that system? It's been online this whole time, running background checks on every heart that crossed your path with malicious intent, cataloging every fake smile, every backstab, every moment they chose cruelty over kindness. Pause. You thought you were taking hits, but you were absorbing impact for something bigger than yourself. Every wound became a weapon, every scar became a star in a constellation they'll never be able to map. See, here's what they miscalculated. You weren't built to break, you were forged to redirect, like a spiritual lightning rod, conducting their darkness and transmuting it into divine electricity that powers up realms they can't even pronounce. David faced Goliath with 5 smooth stones. You faced your giants with something more powerful, sustained silence. That quiet you carried, that wasn't submission, that was spiritual strategy. You were letting heaven load the slingshot while they stood there talking trash to the wrong army. I am not ordinary. I am consecrated. Say it. Feel it vibrate in your chest cavity. Let it rearrange the molecules of doubt they planted in your atmosphere. Because right now, as you breathe these words, as you recognize yourself in this mirror I'm holding up, their curse is boomeranging back to sender. Express delivery. No signature required. They thought they could treat sacred space like a playground, touch holy ground with unclean hands, mock the temple and expect the foundation to crumble. But temples don't fall. They stand. They weather. They outlast the storms that rage against their walls. And you, chosen one, are still standing. The same hands that pushed you down are now shaking as they try to rebuild what their own malice destroyed. The same mouths that cursed your name are now stuttering prayers they should have prayed before they opened them in the first place. You want to know why nothing they threw stuck? Why every trap they set caught them instead? Why every door they tried to close in your face opened two more you never saw coming? Because they sent a curse to break an altar. And altars don't break, they receive. They take what's offered and transform it into something holy, something powerful. Something that rises like incense straight to the nostrils of the God who never sleeps, never slumbers, and never forgets his own. If you know they touched what should have never been touched, drop this truth into the atmosphere. I am not ordinary. I am consecrated. The curse missed because it was never meant for you. It was a return to sender package with their address already stamped on it. And what comes next? The unraveling of everything they built on your supposed destruction. Because when you realize you're not the victim, you're the altar, everything changes. The fire they sent to consume you is about to burn down the house they built on lies. That curse didn't break you. It burned off everything that wasn't meant to stay. You remember those nights, don't you? When your soul collapsed like a building under demolition. When you felt so unworthy, so unlovable, that even God seemed to have turned his face away. You thought you were being punished. You thought you were forgotten. But what if I told you, you were in spiritual containment? God let the fire hit your walls, not to destroy you but to hatch you. See, they sent poison, but it touched a vessel built from prophecy. And when poison meets prophecy, something explosive happens, something they never calculated, something that turns their weapon into your wings. You felt it, didn't you? That moment when everything went dark, when the betrayal hit so deep you couldn't breathe, when the people you trusted most became strangers wearing familiar faces, when your own family looked at you like you were the problem. That wasn't spiritual warfare. That was spiritual preparation. They thought you were burning down. God was just lighting your launch. You see, chosen ones don't break the way regular people break. When pressure hits us, we don't shatter, we transform. Like coal under pressure becomes diamonds. Like grapes under crushing becomes wine. Like Joseph in that pit, David in that cave, Job on that ash heap. The fire they lit became the flame that freed you. But let me go deeper. Let me tell you what really happened in those midnight hours when you were questioning everything. When you were so broken you couldn't even pray proper words, just groans and tears and desperate whispers into the dark. You thought God wasn't listening, but heaven was recording. Every tear was liquid prophecy. Every sleepless night was divine download time. Every moment you felt abandoned was actually you being separated, pulled away from contamination that would have diluted your calling. That spiritual isolation you've been carrying like a scar, that wasn't rejection, that was selection. God pulled you out of their circle because their frequency was jamming your signal. He let them curse you because he knew their curse couldn't touch what he created you to become. Like Balaam trying to curse Israel, every word they spoke against you boomeranged back into their own bloodline. Numbers 23:8 says it plain. How can I curse whom God has not cursed? But here's what Balaam learned the hard way. When you try to curse the chosen, you end up cursing yourself. The very poison they mixed with your name is now the antidote flowing through your veins. You want to know why you're still standing? Why you didn't break when everything said you should? Because what they were trying to kill was never actually you. They were fighting your assignment. They were warring against your purpose. They were throwing stones at a reflection of their own emptiness. But you were bulletproof before the bullets came. That's why the curse missed. That's why the manipulation bounced off. That's why their schemes kept backfiring. They weren't fighting flesh and blood, they were fighting divine destiny, and destiny doesn't lose. Think about it. Every time they tried to bury you, you grew stronger. Every time they tried to silence you, your voice got clearer. Every time they tried to break your spirit, your faith got fiercer. That wasn't coincidence. That was code. Divine DNA activating under pressure. You weren't the victim in their story. You were the virus in their system. Your very existence disrupted their whole program. Your authenticity exposed their pretense. Your light made their shadows visible. And when they couldn't dim you, they tried to delete you. But here's the plot twist they never saw coming. What looks like deletion to them is actually elevation to heaven. What feels like burial to the enemy is actually planting to the Most High. The moment your pain became your prophecy was the moment their power became powerless. Remember Pharaoh trying to drown the Hebrew babies? He didn't know he was preparing Moses for his own defeat. Remember Haman building gallows for Mordecai? He didn't know he was constructing his own execution. They thought they were writing your obituary. They were actually drafting your origin story. Every betrayal was a chapter. Every lie they told was a plot twist. Every door they slammed was a page turn. And now you're standing in the final act, watching their house of cards collapse under the weight of their own deception. Say it with me. The fire they lit became the flame that freed me. Say it again. What they built to break me became the breakthrough that made me. One more time. Their curse became my catalyst. Because that's what happens when earthly weapons meet heavenly armor. That's what happens when human hatred collides with divine protection. That's what happens when they try to stop what God already started. The curse didn't hit you. It ricocheted. It boomeranged. It came full circle and landed right back in their own backyard. And now they're dealing with the very energy they tried to project onto you. You're not just surviving their attack. You're thriving because of it. And if you can feel this truth burning in your chest right now, if you can feel that old pain transforming into new power, then you're ready for what comes next. Because what I'm about to tell you will explain why they're not just losing, they're unraveling from the inside out. While you were in your healing season, learning to breathe again, learning to trust your own heartbeat, their house started cracking from the inside. You became the ghost they can't sleep through. Every room they walk into whispers your name. Every door they open creaks with the weight of what they did to you. They cursed your future, threw spiritual stones at your destiny, tried to bury your light under their lies. But now every door they walk through echoes with your name. Every blessing they try to claim slips through their fingers like sand. You didn't have to say a word. Your silence became their torment. Remember Haman? Built gallows 75 feet high for Mordecai. Thought he was about to watch his enemy swing. But the Bible says the very gallows he built became his own execution. That's not just a story, beloved. That's a promise. What they built to destroy you, they're hanging from it now. Heaven doesn't always answer with thunder. Sometimes it just lets them live long enough to watch the house fall. They thought your silence was surrender, but your silence was sacred. Your tears weren't weakness, they were warfare. Every night you cried yourself to sleep instead of cursing them back. You were activating realms they don't have access to. You were storing up spiritual ammunition in places they can't touch. You didn't clap back. God collapsed the stage. Now watch them scramble. Watch them try to rebuild what your prayers already demolished. They're living in a house haunted by their own cruelty, and every shadow reminds them of the light they tried to snuff out. You ever notice how the people who hurt you can't seem to get their life together anymore? How their peace feels forced? How their smile looks painted on? That's not coincidence, chosen one. That's consequence. Your name is written in their conscience like graffiti they can't scrub off. They wake up at 3 a.m. and think about you, not because they miss you, but because guilt is a ghost that never sleeps. They scroll through your social media hoping to see you broken, but instead they see you glowing. They wanted to see failure, but they're witnessing favor. They expected collapse, but they're watching comeback, and it's killing them softly. Every time they see you rising, every time they witness your peace, every time they watch doors open for you that stayed locked for them, it's like watching their own judgment play out in real time. You became the mirror they can't avoid, the truth they can't escape. They tried to make you the villain in their story, but God made you the victory they'll never taste. You know what haunts them most? It's not that you survived, it's that you survived without bitterness. They expected you to turn cold, turn hard, turn into them. But you chose healing over hatred. You chose growth over grudges. You chose to glow where they tried to make you gray. That's what's eating them alive from the inside. Your forgiveness wasn't for them, it was your freedom. Your peace wasn't weakness, it was your weapon. Every time you chose love over revenge, you were loading spiritual bullets into a gun they'll never see coming. My peace was louder than their curses. Say it with me. My peace was louder than their curses. Now they're trapped in the prison they built for you. The lies they told about you are the bars on their own cell. The manipulation they used is the chain around their own ankles. The curse they sent bounced off your anointing and boomeranged straight back into their bloodline. You didn't have to fight. You just had to outlast. David didn't have to kill Saul. He just had to survive long enough for Saul to kill himself. That's the power of divine protection, beloved. You don't have to destroy your enemies. You just have to stay alive long enough to watch them destroy themselves. And that's exactly what's happening. Their house is haunted by your name because your name carries weight they underestimated. You're not just a person they wronged. You're a purpose they interrupted. You're an assignment they attacked. You're a calling they couldn't cancel. When they came for you, they came for something bigger than you. They came for the God in you. They came for the mission on you. They came for the anointing through you. And now that same anointing is the fire burning down everything they built on lies. You were the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in their furnace. They thought the fire would consume you, but you walked out without even the smell of smoke. Now they're the ones burning in the very flames they lit. The silence you kept wasn't empty, it was pregnant with power. Every word you didn't say was a word heaven heard. Every tear you cried in secret was a prayer that moved in the spirit. Every night you went to bed hurt but not hateful was a night God marked in his books. Your restraint was your revenge. Your character was your comeback. If your silence was your testimony, declare it. My peace was louder than their curses. Say it until you believe it. Say it until you feel it. Say it until their names stop having power over your heartbeat. Because what's coming next will show you exactly why God kept you alive through their attacks. Why he shielded you in their storm. Why he saved you from their system. You weren't surviving for nothing. You were surviving for this. You were not their victim. You were their exam, and they flunked spectacularly. See, what you thought was betrayal was actually revelation. What felt like rejection was divine inspection. Every moment they chose cruelty over compassion. Every time they picked their ego over your heart. Every whispered lie they spread about you in rooms you'll never enter. God was taking notes. You were placed in their path to bless them. They chose to break you instead. But here's the twist that's about to shatter everything you believed about your pain. You weren't the storm they needed to survive. You were the lighthouse they refused to see. Think about it. How many times did you extend grace when they deserved judgment? How many nights did you pray for people who cursed your name during the day? How many chances did you give to hearts that were already plotting your downfall? That wasn't weakness. That was divine assignment. You were the Jonah in their boat. And they threw you out, thinking the storm would stop. But it wasn't you bringing the storm. It was their dishonor. Their refusal to recognize sacred when it sat at their dinner table. Their inability to handle blessing when it wore your face. Pause. Let that sink into your bones. God watched how they handled a sacred soul in secret. He saw every eye roll when you spoke truth. Every smirk when you showed vulnerability. Every calculated move to isolate you, break you, remake you in their image. They didn't just betray a person. They flunked a divine appointment. You know what Joseph's brothers didn't realize when they threw him in that pit? They weren't just disposing of a dreamer. They were rejecting their own deliverance. Because the very one they tried to bury was the same one destined to save them from famine. Sound familiar? The rejection you felt wasn't random. It was prophetic. You were being positioned for purpose while they were choosing destruction. Every door they slammed in your face was God redirecting your path away from people who would have wasted your gifts. That family member who gaslighted you at every gathering, they failed the test of honoring what God honored. That friend who turned the whole circle against you, they chose gossip over grace. That partner who made you question your own reality, they picked control over connection. And heaven documented every choice. Your tears weren't just grief, they were evidence. Every sleepless night you spent wondering what you did wrong. Every prayer you whispered through broken sobs. Every moment you chose forgiveness over retaliation. That was your testimony being written in real time. They thought they were watching you break. God was watching them reveal who they really were. But here's where it gets dangerous for them. When you mess with someone, heaven is positioning. When you dishonor what God is protecting, when you attack a soul carrying divine assignment, the backlash doesn't come from the person you hurt. It comes from the God you challenged. David didn't have to touch Saul. Job didn't curse his accusers. Elijah didn't strike down Jezebel with his own hands. They let God handle the people who handled them wrong. And God always handles his own. You feel that shift happening now, don't you? That strange calm that comes when you stop fighting and start trusting. That eerie peace that settles over your spirit when you realize you don't need to defend yourself anymore. That's not resignation, that's recognition. You're finally seeing what heaven saw all along. You were never their equal. You were their opportunity. An opportunity they squandered with both hands. The dirt they threw on you, God's turning it into the ground you rise from. The lies they spread about you, they're becoming the truth that exposes them. The curse they sent your way, it boomeranged back with interest and compound effects. You didn't dodge their bullet. You were bulletproof all along. Every attack that should have destroyed you only proved you were protected by something they couldn't touch, couldn't bribe, couldn't manipulate. Every scheme that should have worked but didn't. Every plan that backfired in their face. Every moment their lies got tangled up in their own web that was divine intervention wearing work clothes. You survived because you were supposed to. You're still standing because your assignment isn't finished. You're still breathing because God still needs your light in places they'll never reach. They thought they were breaking you. They were actually breaking themselves against the rock of your calling. This is where their nightmare begins and your vindication starts. The same energy they used to curse you is now circling their own house. The same poison they tried to feed you is now in their own well. The same pit they dug for you has become their own trap. And the beautiful part? You don't have to watch them fall. You don't have to gloat. You don't have to say, "I told you so." You just have to keep rising, because that's what chosen ones do. We don't get revenge. We get elevation. We don't curse back. We bless forward. We don't fall to their level. We rise to our calling. If you were used like a doormat, say this out loud. God turned the dirt they threw on me into the ground I rise from. Say it until you feel it shift in your spirit. Say it until the sting turns to strength. Say it until you stop seeing yourself as their victim and start walking as heaven's vindication. Because what's coming next will prove that their biggest mistake wasn't underestimating you. It was overestimating themselves. You didn't just survive, you transcended. They watched you break, laughed at your lowest, pointed fingers when you couldn't even lift your head. They threw dirt on your name like they were burying a corpse. But what they didn't know, resurrection lives in your bloodline. See, they thought your silence was surrender, thought your tears were defeat, thought when you walked away broken, that was the end of your story. But chosen ones don't write endings, they write resurrections. Every betrayal was a burial. Every rejection, another shovel of earth. Every lie they told about you, another nail in what they thought was your coffin. But here's what broke their understanding. You weren't dying, you were germinating. Like Joseph in that pit, thrown down by his own blood. Like David hiding in caves while Saul hunted him with armies. Like Job scraping boils with broken pottery while his friends called him cursed. They all looked finished. They all looked forgotten. But God was writing resurrection in the darkness. You know that feeling when you're so far down you can't even see the light anymore? When the people who should have pulled you up were the ones pushing you deeper? That wasn't your destruction, beloved. That was your transformation chamber. They mocked your fall because they couldn't see what was growing in the ground. Every tear you cried in secret watered seeds they never knew you planted. Every night you prayed through the pain, you were calling down power they couldn't measure. Every time you chose forgiveness over revenge, you were activating forces they had no access to. You weren't their victim, you were their teacher, and they failed the class. Now here's where it gets beautiful and terrifying for them. You didn't just crawl out of that grave, you rose with authority. You didn't just survive the fire, you came back wearing it like a crown. Your resurrection wasn't quiet, it was volcanic. They're watching you now, and their confidence is cracking. The person they buried is walking around with power they can't explain. The one they broke is building things they can't touch. The soul they tried to silence is speaking truth that shakes their foundations. Like a phoenix from ash, you rose. But you didn't just rise, you soared into territories they never dreamed you'd reach. Like a seed buried in betrayal, you bloomed. But you didn't just bloom, you became a garden they can't destroy. Like pressure that forms diamonds, you crystallized. But you didn't just become precious, you became priceless. And now they're scared. Not of what you might do to them, but of what your existence proves about their powerlessness. Your resurrection is their revelation. Your rise is their reckoning. You weren't their downfall, but your rise will be the proof they never had power. Every door they tried to close, heaven opened two more. Every bridge they burned, the universe built highways. Every reputation they tried to destroy, God rebuilt with gold. They wanted you erased. Instead, you became undeniable. The same mouth that spoke curses over you is now choking on your blessings. The same hands that pushed you down are now reaching up, begging for the grace they never showed you. The same eyes that watched you fall are now witnessing your ascension, and they can't look away. But here's the part that makes angels weep and demons tremble. You're not bitter. After everything they put you through, after every betrayal, every lie, every moment they made you question your own sanity, you're not bitter. You're better. You rose without revenge. You healed without hatred. You succeeded without spite. And that kind of resurrection, that's not human, beloved. That's divine. Like Lazarus walking out of that tomb, still wrapped in burial clothes but breathing with resurrection power. Like Jesus stepping out of the grave with nail-scarred hands that still chose to bless. You emerged from your darkness not with weapons, but with worship. They expected you to come back swinging. Instead, you came back shining. They prepared for your anger. You arrived with your anointing. They fortified against your revenge. You overwhelmed them with your resilience. Your comeback wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving God right. And now they're living in the ruins of the curse they sent, their own words echoing back like thunder, their own energy boomeranging with compound interest. They sent destruction and received desolation. They planted poison and harvested pain, while you're walking in a dimension they can't reach, speaking a language they can't understand, operating with a power they can't replicate. You weren't buried, beloved. You were planted, and your harvest season has arrived. If you were buried and bloomed, say it now. They didn't bury me, they planted me. If you rose from what should have killed you, declare it. I am resurrection walking. If you're reading this and feeling that fire in your chest, that knowing in your spirit, that confirmation in your soul, you are witnessing your own eulogy being rewritten as your victory song. They mocked your fall. They never calculated your rise. They celebrated your burial. They never imagined your blooming. But here you are, breathing, believing, becoming, and what comes next? The full manifestation of why they could never bury what heaven had already blessed. The ground is still shaking from your resurrection, and the aftershocks, they're just beginning. They activated something ancient, and now it can't be stopped. You ever wonder why that betrayal felt different? Why that rejection cut deeper than bone? Why their words didn't just hurt, they awakened something primal in your chest? That wasn't just pain, beloved. That was activation. See, every chosen one has a threshold once crossed. Judgment isn't personal, it's encoded, written in your spiritual DNA before you took your first breath. And when they pushed you past that line, when they violated the sacred space around your soul, they didn't just hurt your feelings. They triggered ancient protocols. They wanted you weak, but they triggered a version of you that even you didn't know existed. Like Jacob wrestling with the angel until his hip was dislocated but his name was changed. Like Moses stuttering until the burning bush turned his weakness into world-shaking authority. Like David running from Saul until the caves taught him to command armies. Your breaking point wasn't your breakdown. It was your breakthrough into who you've always been. They thought they were cursing you. They were unlocking you. Every lie they told activated truth sensors you didn't know you had. Every betrayal awakened discernment that cuts through deception like light through darkness. Every rejection reconnected you to your real assignment, the one they were trying to distract you from. You felt it, didn't you? That moment when something shifted. When their words stopped penetrating, when their opinions stopped mattering, when their presence stopped affecting your peace. That wasn't you getting cold. That was your spiritual immune system finally kicking in. The law of divine recompense doesn't sleep. What they sent out is already circling back with compound interest. The law of energy return doesn't negotiate. Every ounce of pain they caused is being measured and matched. The law of sacred assignment doesn't forget. When you mess with someone heaven has marked, the angels assigned to them start responding, and now they're feeling it. That inexplicable pressure. Those doors closing for no apparent reason. Those relationships souring without explanation. Those opportunities drying up like streams in a drought. They'll call it bad luck. You'll know it's divine mathematics. But here's where it gets beautiful and terrifying. You remember who you are. And when a chosen one remembers, everything shifts. That family member who gaslit you into questioning your own reality, they're now questioning theirs. That friend who betrayed your trust for social currency, their social world is crumbling. That person who mocked your sensitivity, they're now hypersensitive to every slight, every rejection, every hint of the isolation they put you through. Your DNA wasn't just awakened, it was weaponized. Not for destruction, but for divine order. Not for revenge, but for rebalancing. The same energy they tried to crush is now restructuring reality around you. You're not the same person who walked into their trap. You're the upgraded version who walked out of their tomb. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepping out of the fire without even the smell of smoke on their clothes. Like Daniel emerging from the lion's den with the lions as his security detail. Like Jonah being vomited onto dry land by the very thing that was supposed to destroy him. You didn't just survive their curse, you absorbed it, transformed it, and sent it back as blessing energy. They threw stones. You built altars. They dug pits. You planted gardens. They sent darkness. You became light. And now they're living in the eclipse of their own shadow while you're walking in dimensions they can't reach, speaking languages they can't understand, operating with frequencies they can't tune into. Your spiritual DNA isn't just activated, it's broadcasting. Every chosen one within a 500-mile radius is feeling the shift. Every person assigned to your destiny is being drawn into your orbit. Every door that's meant to open for you is recognizing your new frequency and responding accordingly. But here's the part that makes demons tremble and heaven celebrate. You're not using this power to get even. You're using it to get free. You're not seeking revenge. You're seeking restoration. You're not trying to destroy them. You're focused on building yourself. And that kind of response? That's not human maturity. That's divine DNA expressing itself through human form. They expected you to stay broken. Instead, you became unbreakable. They expected you to stay bitter. Instead, you became better. They expected you to stay stuck. Instead, you became unstoppable. Your pain was the password. Your endurance was the encryption. Your forgiveness was the final code that unlocked levels of yourself you never knew existed. You're not just healed. You're upgraded. You're not just restored. You're revolutionized. You're not just back. You're beyond where you've ever been. The curse they sent didn't just miss it, ricocheted back and shattered every limitation they tried to place on your life. Every ceiling they built became your floor. Every wall they erected became your doorway. Every chain they forged became your crown. And now you're walking in the fullness of what they tried to prevent. The very thing they fought against is the very thing you've become. Their worst nightmare wasn't your destruction. It was your activation. If you feel your DNA waking up, type this into the atmosphere. I'm not broken. I've been unlocked. If you sense that ancient power stirring in your chest, declare it. My spiritual bloodline has been activated. If you know that something cosmic has shifted and there's no going back to who you used to be, proclaim it. I am operating from my original design. Because what they awakened in you wasn't just power, it was purpose. And that purpose is about to reshape everything they thought they destroyed. The curse didn't just unlock your DNA, it unlocked your destiny. And what's coming next will prove that some things are too sacred to stay buried. Everything they built while stepping on you is now sinking. You remember how they climbed, don't you? Used your kindness as a ladder, your loyalty as a stepping stone, your silence as their foundation. They built their little kingdoms on the wreckage of your trust, constructed their success stories from the chapters they tore out of your book. But here's what they never calculated. You can't build permanent structures on borrowed pain. Their fake blessings are glitching. The platforms they stood on are cracking under karma's weight. Every promotion they got while you were pushed down, every opportunity they seized while you were silenced, every victory lap they took while you were left bleeding, it's all unraveling now. Like Babel reaching toward heaven with stolen bricks, their tower is tumbling. And just like those ancient builders, their languages are getting confused. They can't communicate anymore. Their alliances are fragmenting. Their stories aren't adding up. You were their secret ingredient, the foundation they never credited, the ghostwriter of their success story. They took your ideas and called them theirs, absorbed your energy and claimed they were naturally gifted, fed off your wisdom and painted themselves as the source. But stolen glory has an expiration date. Now watch them scramble as their house of cards collapses. The same people who applauded their rise are questioning their methods. The same success that felt so solid is revealing itself as hollow. The same reputation they polished with your tears is tarnishing in real time. They stepped on a chosen one to build their stage, now it's caving under the weight of their own illusion. You know that feeling when you watch them succeed with your blueprints? When they got the credit for the vision you whispered in their ear? When they stood on stages built from your sacrifice and never once mentioned your name? That wasn't just unfair, beloved. That was spiritual theft. And heaven keeps receipts. Every dollar they made from your unpaid labor is becoming debt. Every relationship they built on lies about you is crumbling into distrust. Every door that opened for them, while yours stayed closed, is now slamming shut with divine precision. The universe is auditing their books, and the math isn't adding up. Remember Joseph's brothers selling him into slavery, thinking they'd eliminated the threat? Remember how they lived off their father's love while Joseph suffered in silence? But when the famine came, when their comfortable lives started cracking, guess who had the keys to the storehouse? Their betrayal became your promotion. Their rejection became your redirection. Their curse became your catalyst. You weren't just removed from their circle, you were relocated to your calling. And now they're watching from the outside as everything they built without integrity begins to collapse. The businesses they started with your stolen concepts are failing. The friendships they maintained through lies about you are dissolving. The influence they gathered by diminishing you is evaporating. They thought they were architects. They were actually demolition crews working on their own foundations. See, when you build on betrayal, the structure is unstable from day one. When you profit from someone else's pain, you're not just taking their energy, you're inheriting their struggle. When you step on a chosen one to elevate yourself, you're not climbing, you're cursing your own ascension. And now gravity is calling their name. Their confidence is becoming confusion. Their certainty is turning to chaos. The same swagger they wore while walking over you is now stumbling over the debris of their own making. They can't understand why nothing feels secure anymore, why every victory feels hollow, why every blessing feels borrowed. It's because it is borrowed, and the loan is due. But here's where your resurrection gets beautiful. You're not watching their fall from bitterness, you're observing it from a higher altitude. You're not celebrating their destruction, you're witnessing divine correction. You're not seeking revenge, you're receiving confirmation. Your pain wasn't wasted, your silence wasn't ignored. Your sacrifice wasn't in vain. Every tear you cried while they prospered was watering seeds they couldn't see. Every night you prayed while they partied was activating forces they couldn't access. Every moment you chose grace while they chose greed was writing checks their souls couldn't cash. You were never their victim, you were their teacher. And class is now in session. The same ground they walked on while stepping over you is now shaking beneath their feet. The same air they breathed while suffocating your dreams is now thick with the smoke of their burning bridges. The same sun that shone on their stolen success is now setting on their season of deception. They built empires on your back, but empires built on injustice don't stand. They constructed legacies from your losses, but legacies rooted in lies don't last. They painted masterpieces with your blood, but art born from betrayal doesn't inspire, it expires. And now, their masterpiece is melting. Their empire is eroding. Their legacy is being rewritten as a cautionary tale. What they meant for your destruction became the blueprint for their collapse. What they used to elevate themselves became the weight that pulled them down. What they thought was their victory lap became their final march. You can't profit off betrayal forever. You can't build paradise on someone else's pain. You can't harvest what you didn't plant with clean hands. If their success came from your suffering, release this truth. They can't profit off betrayal forever. If you planted seeds in tears while they planted lies in hearts, declare this: my harvest is coming, and their house of cards is falling. The ground is shifting, beloved, not beneath your feet but beneath theirs, because what they built on your back was never meant to stand, and what you're building on solid ground will never fall. The collapse isn't coming, it's here, and in the rubble of their fake empire, your real kingdom is rising from the ashes they thought would bury you forever. You weren't forgotten, you were preserved as evidence. All those nights you cried yourself to sleep wondering if God even saw what they were doing to you. All those mornings you woke up feeling invisible, overlooked, like your pain didn't matter to anyone, not even heaven. You thought silence was rejection, but God was gathering receipts. Every whispered lie they told about you behind closed doors. Every calculated betrayal disguised as concern. Every moment they smiled in your face while sharpening knives for your back. You thought nobody witnessed it, but the courtroom of heaven was full. See, when they moved against you in darkness, thinking their schemes were hidden, God wasn't asleep. He wasn't distracted. He wasn't late. He was taking notes. Divine documentation was happening in real time while you were breaking in real pain. You felt abandoned because you couldn't see the spiritual stenographer recording every word. You felt forgotten because you couldn't hear the cosmic court transcribing every betrayal. But beloved, your isolation wasn't punishment, it was protection. Your hiddenness wasn't rejection, it was preservation. Like Joseph forgotten in that prison cell, rotting while his dreams seemed to die. Like David running from cave to cave while Saul's armies hunted him like an animal. Like Jeremiah thrown in a pit by the very people he prophesied to save. They all looked abandoned. They all felt forgotten. But God was building cases while they were breaking hearts. You thought silence meant God wasn't listening. But silence meant God was building a file so thick, so detailed, so undeniable that when he opened it, there would be no appeals, no excuses, no room for their lies to breathe. He didn't react. He recorded. He didn't shout. He strategized. Every tear you cried alone became liquid evidence. Every night you chose forgiveness over revenge became character testimony. Every time you stayed quiet when you could have exploded became proof of your integrity. While they were busy destroying your reputation, you were unknowingly building your case. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned. See, they thought nothing was happening because heaven wasn't responding on their timeline. They grew bold in their wickedness, confident in their cruelty, arrogant in their attacks because immediate judgment didn't fall. But that delay, that wasn't God's weakness. That was his wisdom. He was letting them dig deeper, letting them reveal more, letting them accumulate evidence against themselves while preserving you as the star witness they never saw coming. Every sleepless night you endured, Wondering why good people suffer while evil people prosper, you were being hidden in the secret place of the Most High. Not hidden from blessing, but hidden for blessing. Not hidden from purpose, but hidden until purpose was ready to be revealed with power. Like Moses hidden in the bulrushes while Pharaoh tried to kill every Hebrew baby. Like baby Jesus hidden in Egypt while Herod massacred innocents. Like Elijah hidden by the brook while Jezebel sent assassins. The hiddenness wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of their authority. Your season of feeling unseen was actually your season of being spiritually photographed. Every act of their injustice against you was being captured in high-definition detail in heaven's archives. While you felt like nobody cared, God was building a portfolio of their guilt that would become undeniable evidence of your innocence. And now, beloved, now the moment has come. The spiritual file is being opened. The cosmic court is in session. The verdict is being read. And it doesn't just say not guilty. It says justified, exonerated, elevated. The same silence that felt like abandonment is now thundering through their consciousness like divine vindication. The same hiddenness that felt like rejection is now manifesting as divine selection. The same isolation that felt like punishment is now revealing itself as divine positioning. While they were celebrating what they thought was your defeat, heaven was preparing what they never imagined: your complete vindication and their total exposure. Not through your mouth, but through their own actions, boomeranging back with compound interest. You thought you were hidden because you were forgotten, but you were hidden because you were being prepared for a comeback so powerful, so undeniable, so divinely orchestrated that when you emerged, there would be no question about whose side heaven was on. The evidence is overwhelming. The verdict is final. The sentence is being executed not by your hand, but by the very universe they thought would forget what they did in darkness. Every door they tried to close, God documented. Every opportunity they blocked, heaven recorded. Every blessing they tried to steal, the divine court entered into evidence. And now the spiritual balance sheets are being reconciled with interest that compounds into territories they never imagined. They moved against you thinking they were fighting flesh and blood, but they were actually filing a lawsuit against heaven itself. And heaven never loses a case when the evidence is this clear, this documented, this overwhelmingly in favor of the innocent. You weren't hidden because you were worthless. You were hidden because you were priceless. You weren't overlooked because you were ordinary. You were preserved because you were extraordinary. You weren't forgotten because you didn't matter. You were protected because you mattered more than they could comprehend. The season of feeling invisible is over. The time of feeling unheard has ended. The verdict is in, and it's not just justice, it's divine reversal with exponential blessing attached. If you felt hidden and overlooked, say it. Heaven saw me. Heaven saved it all. If you've been wondering why God let them get away with it for so long, declare it. He wasn't letting them win. He was letting them bury themselves. The courtroom of heaven has spoken. The file has been opened. The evidence presented. The verdict rendered. And what they're about to discover is that you can't sue heaven and expect to win. The judgment they tried to place on you is now falling on them with the full weight of divine justice behind it. The hiddenness is over. The revelation has begun. And what emerges next will leave no doubt about who was really protected all along. They sent destruction. Heaven turned it into dominion. You know that moment when you realized the very thing that was meant to kill you became the very thing that made you royalty? When the curse they wrapped around your neck transformed into a crown they could never touch? That's where you are now, beloved. Standing in the aftermath of their hatred, wearing the glory of your endurance. You didn't walk out of the fire the same you walked out with flames in your hands. See, they thought when they cursed your name, when they poisoned your reputation, when they turned your own blood against you, they thought they were ending your story. But what they were really doing was writing your coronation speech. Every lie became a jewel in your crown. Every betrayal became a testament to your throne. Every tear became oil for your anointing. You remember when they gathered in circles, speaking death over your destiny? When they sat around tables that should have had your chair, deciding your fate like you were already gone? They didn't know they were hosting your coronation ceremony. They didn't realize that every word spoken against you was being recorded by angels as evidence of your worthiness. Like Daniel in the lion's den, surrounded by predators that couldn't touch him. Like the 3 Hebrew boys in the furnace, walking with the 4th man while their enemies watched in terror. Like Esther, rising to royalty through the very plot designed to destroy her people. The curse became the catalyst. The pit became the palace. They cursed your finances, now money flows to you like rivers seeking the ocean. They cursed your relationships, now you attract souls that recognize your light before you even speak. They cursed your peace, now you carry a serenity so deep it disturbs their chaos just by existing. You're not seeking revenge. You're wearing revelation. Every morning you wake up, they feel the weight of what they created. Not your pain, your power. Not your breakdown, your breakthrough. Not your ending, your elevation. The curse they sent didn't just miss its target. It circled back and crowned the one they tried to destroy. And now they're watching from the outside, pressed against windows of opportunities they can never enter, witnessing a rise they can never replicate. They see you moving in rooms they lost access to. They see you speaking with authority they can never command. They see you walking with a confidence that comes from surviving their worst and emerging with heaven's best. The crown isn't gold, beloved. It's something far more precious. It's made of every night you didn't give up, every prayer you whispered through tears, every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, every moment you blessed those who cursed you. That crown was forged in the fire of their hatred and polished by the tears of your endurance. Like David, anointed in secret while Saul still sat on the throne. Like Moses, prepared in the wilderness while Pharaoh still ruled Egypt. Like Jesus, declaring his kingdom while hanging on a cross. The coronation happened in the darkness, but the revelation is happening in the light. You feel it now, don't you? That settling in your spirit, that sense of divine positioning, that knowing that you're not who you used to be. The curse they sent didn't just fail, it transformed you into someone they could never become. Angels are sealing your assignment right now, not because you earned it through perfection, but because you proved it through pressure. Not because you never fell, but because you never stayed down. Not because you were never hurt, but because you turned hurt into healing. They thought they were writing your obituary. They were actually drafting your royal decree. Every door they tried to close became a gateway. Heaven opened wider. Every bridge they burned became a path that led you higher. Every reputation they tried to assassinate became a testimony they could never silence. You didn't just survive the curse. You turned it into your coronation robe. And now they're living in the shadow of what they created. A chosen one who learned to transform poison into power, betrayal into blessing, curses into crowns. They're watching you reign from a throne they accidentally built with their own hatred. The same hands that tried to push you down are now trembling at your ascension. The same mouths that spoke curses are now speechless at your elevation. The same eyes that watched you break are now witnessing your breakthrough, and they can't look away. But here's the part that makes this coronation sacred, beloved. You're not ruling with an iron fist. You're reigning with a healed heart. You're not governing through revenge. You're leading through revelation. You're not wearing your crown with pride. You're carrying it with purpose. They created a ruler who rules with righteousness. They forged a leader who leads with love. They crowned a sovereign who serves with sacrifice. The curse became your character. The attack became your anointing. The hatred became your healing. You feel your crown settling, don't you? You feel your spirit rising to meet the authority heaven always intended for you. You feel the weight of divine assignment replacing the weight of human rejection. This isn't about becoming better than them, beloved. This is about becoming who you were always meant to be, with or without their permission, with or without their presence, with or without their understanding. If you feel your crown settling, if you feel your spirit rising, declare this into the heavens. The curse became my crown, and I accept the throne. Because what they meant for your destruction, heaven has turned into your dominion. And the kingdom you're about to inherit, it's built on foundations they could never shake, governed by principles they could never break, and established by a power they could never fake. The coronation is complete, the reign has begun, and the very ones who sent the curse are now the first witnesses of your crown. They thought you were fighting alone, but the moment they cursed you, heaven started moving. You felt it, didn't you? That crushing weight of isolation when everyone turned their backs, when the phone stopped ringing, when the invitations dried up, when you sat in that empty house, empty heart, wondering if God himself had forgotten your address. But what looked like abandonment was actually activation. See, they made a critical miscalculation. They thought when they attacked you, they were fighting one person, one soul, one heartbeat standing against their legion of lies. But chosen ones don't fight solo battles. We carry frequencies that connect to realms they can't see. The moment their curse left their lips, ancient watchers woke up. Every ancestor who died with prayers on their tongue. Every bloodline warrior who fought battles you never knew about. Every generational blessing that was buried but never broken. They all felt the tremor when darkness touched what heaven had marked. You carry the vibration of warriors long gone, and they just rang the bell of generations, like Elisha surrounded by Syrian armies, asking God to open his servants' eyes. Don't be afraid, he said. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And suddenly, the hills were full of horses and chariots of fire. What looked like defeat was actually a demonstration of divine backup. That's your story right now. While you were crying alone in that room, thinking you were forgotten, legions were assembling, not just angels, beloved, generations, your grandmother's prayers that never got answered, your great-grandfather's struggles that seemed to end in silence. Every sacrifice that looked like it was wasted, none of it was lost. It was all accumulating, building, waiting for the moment when someone would dare touch what they died protecting. And when they cursed you, that was the moment. Every prayer warrior in your bloodline opened their eyes in the spirit realm. Every ancestor who bled for breakthrough felt the alarm. Every generation that passed down faith instead of fear heard the call to arms. You weren't abandoned. You were surrounded, not by people you could see, but by forces they could never fight. That's why their curse backfired so violently. They weren't just attacking one soul. They declared war on a dynasty. They threw stones at a fortress they couldn't see. They cursed someone backed by battalions they didn't know existed. You think it's coincidence that their plans started unraveling the moment they came for you? You think it's luck that their own house began to shake right after they tried to tear down yours? No, beloved. That's what happens when you touch someone who carries the weight of generations. Like David facing Goliath, looking like a boy with a slingshot. But he wasn't alone on that field. Every victory God had given Israel was standing behind him. Every promise made to Abraham was loading that stone. Every covenant sworn to his fathers was guiding that shot. One boy, one stone, but the power of 1,000 battles. That's you facing your giants right now. Every time you felt outnumbered, you were actually commanding armies. Every moment you thought you were defenseless, weapons were being prepared in your name. Every night you cried yourself to sleep, thinking heaven was silent. Reinforcements were being deployed. The curse they sent didn't just miss you. It awakened something they can't contain. Now watch what happens. The same people who isolated you will find themselves cut off. The same voices that silenced you will lose their platform. The same hands that pointed fingers will find themselves pointing at empty air, while you walk in authority they can't touch. Because you're not just rising alone, you're ascending with backup. Every generational curse they tried to activate just collided with generational blessings they didn't know you carried. Every word of death they spoke just triggered words of life your bloodline deposited in the spirit realm decades ago. They attacked one soul and activated an army. You feel them now, don't you? That presence that's been growing stronger since the storm hit. That sense that something bigger is moving on your behalf. That knowing that this battle isn't really yours to fight anymore. That's your legions awakening. That's your backup arriving. That's the sound of forces they never factored into their equation. Like Joshua at Jericho, not needing to fight because heaven was already handling the walls. Like Jehoshaphat sending worship singers ahead of the army because the battle was already won in the spirit. Like Moses stretching his hands over the Red Sea, because sometimes your only job is to stand still and watch God work. You've been standing, you've been still, and now you're about to watch the most epic comeback in your family's history unfold in real time. Because this isn't just about you anymore. This is about every prayer that was prayed over your life before you could even speak. This is about every sacrifice that was made so you could stand where you're standing. This is about every generation that held on to faith so you could hold on to purpose. They didn't just curse you, they challenged a legacy. They didn't just attack your present, they awakened your past. And your past has been waiting for this moment to prove that some bloodlines don't break. If you feel the weight of unseen help surrounding you, type it now. I am not alone. I was never alone. If you sense the presence of something bigger moving on your behalf, declare it. My legions are awakened. Because what's coming next isn't just your vindication, it's your demonstration. The world is about to see what happens when heaven sends backup for its own. And their curse? It just became the very thing that announced your army's arrival. Heaven doesn't forget curses, it collects them. You thought God was sentimental, thought he'd let their words slide because forgiveness is divine. But what you didn't understand is that heaven isn't sentimental, it's surgical. And every word they spoke against you, every curse they whispered in the dark, every lie they spread like poison, it all came with a tracking number. They don't know that spiritual systems track intention. See, they thought curses were just angry words thrown into the wind, thought their hatred would evaporate like steam, thought their jealousy would just dissolve into thin air. But here's what broke their understanding. The universe runs on divine mathematics, and every negative energy they sent your way, it got logged, filed, stamped with their spiritual signature. You remember those nights when you felt like you were drowning in their venom, when their words cut so deep you couldn't even pray without choking, when you wondered if God was even listening to your silent screams? That wasn't abandonment, beloved. That was collection time. You weren't broken. You were the receipt. Every tear that fell from your eyes was liquid evidence. Every sleepless night was documentation. Every moment you absorbed their poison without poisoning them back was proof of their guilt and your grace. Heaven was building a case so airtight, so undeniable, that when judgment came, there would be no appeals court in hell that could overturn it. Like David counting the stones for Goliath's head, like Moses watching Pharaoh's heart harden with each plague, like Job's friends piling accusation upon accusation while God took notes. The recipient always thinks they're getting away with it. Until the receipt comes due, you thought God was late, but he was counting every spell, every insult, every lie. And now the cosmic collection agency is knocking on their door. Watch how their own words are choking them now. Watch how their own energy is strangling their peace. Watch how the very curses they sent are circling back like spiritual boomerangs, hitting them in places they thought were protected. They cursed your finances. Their money's drying up like water in the desert. They spoke death over your relationships. Their connections are rotting from the inside out. They tried to steal your joy. Their laughter sounds hollow now, echoing in empty rooms where happiness used to live. The fire didn't forget. It just took its time to find the address. Every hex they cast, every evil eye they threw, every moment they celebrated your pain, it's all coming back with compound interest. Not because you prayed for revenge, but because the universe has laws. And one of them is this: what you send out must return. What you sow, you reap. What you curse, curses you back. You remember that feeling when you knew something wasn't right? When you could feel their hatred like a physical weight on your chest? When you'd wake up exhausted for no reason, drained like someone was siphoning your soul? That wasn't paranoia, beloved. That was spiritual warfare. And you were under attack by people who thought they could play with dark forces without consequences. But here's what shattered their confidence. You didn't break. You didn't retaliate. You didn't send curses back. You absorbed every blow and kept your heart clean. You took every hit and refused to let it make you bitter. You endured every spiritual assault and came out sweeter, stronger, more anointed than before. And that purity, that refusal to let their darkness infect your light, that became their undoing. Like Haman building gallows for Mordecai only to hang on them himself. Like the Egyptians drowning in the same sea they thought would trap the Israelites. Like every enemy of God's people who thought their schemes were clever until they became their own destruction. The very trap they set for you became the pit they fell into. The receipts have been delivered. The house they built on your ashes is now their tomb. Can you feel it? That shift in the atmosphere? That weight lifting off your chest? That's not just relief, beloved. That's restoration. The cosmic scales have balanced. The spiritual equation has been solved. And you who they tried to erase, you who they thought they buried, you're still standing while their empire crumbles. You are not who they said you were. You are not the victim they painted. You are not the weak link they exploited. You are chosen, marked, protected. And everything that happened to you wasn't random suffering, it was divine testimony being written in real time. Every betrayal was a chapter. Every curse was a verse. Every tear was ink on the pages of a story heaven was authoring through your pain. They thought they were destroying you. They were actually documenting their own judgment. The door is closed now, not just shut sealed. There's no going back to who you were before you knew your power. No returning to spaces that couldn't contain your calling. No reopening relationships that were built on your brokenness. That version of you who begged for their approval, who questioned your own sanity, who carried their poison like it was medicine, that person is gone, buried. And what rose from that grave is untouchable. The same God who delivered Daniel from the lion's den, who brought Joseph from the pit to the palace, who raised Jesus from the tomb, that same God looked at your situation and said, "Touch my anointed and die." They touched you anyway. Now they're learning what it means to wage war against heaven itself. As it is written in Psalm 105-15, "Do not touch my anointed ones, and do my prophets no harm." They violated that commandment, and now they're discovering that some laws aren't suggestions, they're promises. You survived their curse not by accident, but by appointment. You endured their poison not because you were weak, but because you were chosen to prove that love is stronger than hatred, that light outshines darkness, that resurrection is more powerful than crucifixion. Now hear me clearly, beloved, and let this settle in your spirit like prophecy. I am not who they said I was. I am who God says I am. Their curse missed its target because I was never their target to hit. I am covered. I am chosen. I am untouchable. What they built to break me became the foundation I stand on. What they sent to destroy me became the fire I now carry. I am not a victim of their hatred. I am a survivor of their ignorance. and my existence is proof that heaven keeps its promises. Say it, type it, declare it. Let it roll off your tongue like honey and thunder, because this isn't just affirmation, this is spiritual legislation. You're not just speaking words, you're releasing decrees that shift atmospheres and change timelines. If this message found you in your darkest hour, if it reached you when you thought no one understood, if it spoke to wounds you thought would never heal, that wasn't coincidence. That was divine appointment. You were meant to hear this. You were meant to be here. You were meant to remember who you are. Share this truth, not for my platform, but for your purpose. Because somewhere right now, someone else is drowning in the same poison you escaped. Someone else is questioning their sanity while their enemies celebrate. Someone else needs to know that heaven keeps receipts and spiritual justice is real. Comment below with your testimony. Let the world know, the curse missed, I'm still here. Because your survival story isn't just personal, it's prophetic. It's proof that the enemy's plans fail when they touch what God has sealed. The house they built on your ashes became their tomb. But you built a mansion from their mistakes. You created beauty from their betrayal. You turned their curse into your crown. And this, beloved, is just the beginning of what happens when the chosen stop playing victim and start walking in victory. The curse has been returned to sender. The receipts have been collected. The house has fallen. But you rise like the sun after the darkest night, inevitable, undeniable, and absolutely unstoppable.